Hello, everybody. I hope you're all excited for Lenna's Inception run. I'm Pi, and
I'm
I'm going to
Euthanos.
be one of the commentators here. Euthanos, would you like to kind of introduce us to the game and tell everybody about what they're about to see?
Absolutely, thank you. So today we'll be watching a race between d2kemps and wolfman2000 of Lenna's Inception. For anyone who's not familiar with the game, it's a Zelda-inspired roguelite game, which means, we're going to have a lot of the aspects you'd expect from this type of top-down adventure game, like swords, bombs, bows and arrows, all that stuff. And then some kind of new and unique items, to say the least. But what makes this kind of unique is that everything is randomized, including procedurally generated overworld map, dungeon layouts, the dungeon order, as well as when you get a new item like a potion or a tunic, you're not going to know what it is until you try it. But that shouldn't be any problem for either of these runners, as they're both experts in reacting quickly to everything this game throws at them.
Yep, and our two runners that we have today are d2kemps and wolfman2000, aka Dance Dad. These are two of our best runners in the community. They've both had world records at different points in time. We recently had a big shakeup on the leaderboard because a new version came out, so a lot of players are getting back into the game, trying to get to the top of the leaderboard. So we may very well see a new record here. So that's going to be pretty cool.
Absolutely, and the new version brings all kinds of excitement. We've got new biomes, we've got new enemies, we might see some giant flaming exploding self-healing birds if we're lucky, and if the runners are not lucky, so let's see what happens.
Yep. So I think we've had a couple incentives. So can we find out what those incentives are?
All right. From top to bottom, I'll go. So the first one is, the style, it will be in 32-bit.
Wunderbar.
The world name will be.
Can you give the character name
Oh.
first?
Oh, not order. All right. Character name will be Lance.
Can you spell that, please?
Lance.
Capital L.
Yes.
Oh.
Do you already have that
I don't.
achievement?
I don't. Oh.
There is a
well,
Steam achievement for naming your character Lance.
Well, so much for showing it on my end, but
That's an interesting achievement.
You'll see why as the game goes along.
And instead of the world seed of Eat Ham, which, by the way, I refuse to do. Shoutouts to Elad Difficult, by the way. What is our actual world seed?
It is SASE, SASE, with capital S on SASE and capitalized rest SASE.
All caps SASE. Got
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
No. You're
So it's sassy, like the word sassy, like Wolfman is feeling sassy today.
yeah, it's sassy then SASE.
All one word.
Yeah.
Please tell me if I have it right.
So it's capital S, lowercase a, SSY.
Ah.
And
And
then
then-
that's followed by uppercase S, uppercase A, uppercase S, uppercase E.
Thank you.
All right, we are all on the same page now. And it is very important that the players get that right, because that world seed is going to determine how the randomization works and actually create the world that they're going into. So if they have different seeds, they would be playing completely different games.
Which is no bueno. We don't want that.
And if our runners are ready, I think we can do a countdown.
Just so we're clear, this is perfect ending, right?
It is perfect ending.
Fantastic.
All right, let's do this. So who's counting us down?
Let's go in 3, 2, 1, start.
All right, great. We're off. So both of the players here are going to start off in the classroom, and immediately things start to go a little bit crazy. So the classroom is glitching out, the students are trapped inside, and the only uh, thing that we know is that we can follow this chicken, and hopefully the chicken will show us the way.
We have never been let down by a chicken in the past, so we don't expect this should be the first time. Now we go into this cave here and we find the Elder not in good shape, but we have an homage to the original Zelda with the "It's dangerous to go alone" message. And we find a package and we give it to this young hero-looking fellow named Lance, hence the joke with naming our character Lance as well. And then
And
moving... Go ahead.
Oh, we just picked up the bike, which we'll see later, and we're into the first dungeon.
Yep, and in this first dungeon, there's a couple things that we're going to want to do. First of all, we're going to want to get our first item of the game. And we're also going to want to collect some money, which can be used to purchase a tunic, which will provide some sort of benefit or possibly detriment to the player once they have it.
And again, things are getting a little glitchy. We had a boss just drop down and kill Lance, which I don't think that's supposed to happen in this world. So now we are tasked to be the real Lance instead of that other imposter Lance.
And conveniently, that's already our name, so that should make things easier. So we see both characters now breaking some pots to collect some money. And normally in a Zelda-like game, you would expect them to now move on and find the boss of this dungeon, but due to the specific ending that we're running here, they're actually going to bicycle back to the entrance of the dungeon and leave for now.
Yep, and they're going to drop into the library real quick, and also over on Wolfman's side, we're picking up a tunic, camouflage tunic. It's not very helpful. Some of the tunics that they could get would actually change this run in a big way. Camouflage tunic is not one of those. So we're going to see a pretty vanilla run today.
But it is a perfect ending, so they will be collecting a lot of items along the way. So there's definitely opportunity for things to get spiced up.
Yep, the overall strategy here that they're doing is for a perfect run, they're going to basically dip into every dungeon, try to find all the progression items. So those would be, your standard Zelda-like weapons, your bow, your bombs. And after they pick up each one of those, they're going to then double back, go finish a bunch of side quests, which we just saw Creepy Jack, which they're going to need for one of those side quests up on d2kemps' side. So after they do all of those side quests, then they're going to go and do kind of a boss rush at the end, fight all of the bosses, finish the last dungeon, and that will be the end of the game. So right now we're just basically seeing the players go into the dungeon, try to find the item in that dungeon as quickly as possible, and then get out.
Yep, and to complete these side quests, both players are going to have to pay careful attention as they traverse the overworld, because they're going to run into characters and buildings that they need to go back to later. So they'll have to keep track of what have they seen already and try and remember where it is so they can get back there quickly once they have the proper requirements to interact in that area.
Yeah, luckily the map does make that easier, and the bicycle that they picked up will allow them to warp to certain locations to get around very quickly. And we did just find the bombs, so that's great. They can move on to the next dungeon.
Yep, and every item that they get in a dungeon will allow them to pass a new obstacle. So that's the reason that they have to go to each dungeon in the beginning to begin with.
Yep, the game is randomized, but there is definitely logic there to make sure that the seed is completable. So that means that if there's an obstacle blocking you from the next dungeon, that you will be able to find that item that you need to get past that obstacle in the dungeons that you have access to. So now we're on to dungeon 3, and the item that we get here will allow us to get to dungeon 4.
Both players are on a very fast pace here and pretty equal to this point. They're already found the item room in Dungeon 3, and once they take care of these crab enemies, they'll be able to grab that item, which in this case is the swimming ability. Is that correct?
Yes.
I don't play on 32-bit enough to
They just got the
recognize
swim
everything.
trunks, so now they can swim through water, which is a very quick way to get around. Um, oh, and we just found a book. So one of the things that they need to do is pick up a bunch of books, and we may see a bit of a different strategy between the two players. So I know that d2kemps prefers to sort of pick up the items as they come along, and then only start hunting for the books later. Whereas I know Wolfman likes to hunt for books basically from the start so that he can get that side quest done as quickly as possible.
That's one of the biggest changes from the new version of the game is that now sometimes books are extremely abundant in a seed, and other times you really have to go out hunting for them. So it'll be interesting to see what the players get in this one.
Yeah, and so far from what we know from looking at the map, it does not look like there's a graveyard on this side. So that's one of the changes that you were kind of alluding to, is that in version 1.1, we have some new biomes, which is kind of like the way that the map looks. And one of those biomes is called the graveyard, and that includes gravestones that can be pushed and will often have items underneath it. And that is a great way to find books without having to do a bunch of combat. And in this case, we don't have any yet, and that may mean that it will take a little bit longer, and they'll have to rely on the guaranteed book drops in order to get all the books that they need for the side quest.
Yep, and the reason there's any guaranteed items at all is because
Oh, secret room, secret room.
Oh, very nice. So yeah, on wolfman2000 screen, he noticed a strange pattern in the floor there, and took the opportunity to bomb through the wall and found the secret item. But unfortunately, the item was not what he was looking for.
Yep, there's one item in particular that they're looking for, and we'll talk about it more as we get closer to it. But in this case, it was not that item, and so they're basically just going to ignore it. It's not really useful.
And d2kemps finds the secret item as well.
Yep, it's a secret to not very many people, I guess, because it's pretty obvious from that layout that there was something against that wall.
All right, and Wolfman has made it to the item room. Just has a couple hovering snails to take out.
Yep, it's nice to see that the snails do not get stuck in this version anymore. It used to be that if you have pits like they have in that room, that the snail could kind of sneak into a place where you can't attack it, but they were able to take it out. And now we're about to go across the bridge. So this is sort of the first big break in the run.
We just watched the chairman of the bank run out the door. We had talked to him, and he dropped us in a trapdoor into the dungeon. So now we're chasing him over to the east side of the island. And d2kemps on the way out of the bank as well, so he's well on his way also.
Ooh, Wolfman kind of ended up going down a bit of a dead end there. That's one of the downsides of running these roguelike games, is that you don't know what the map is going to be, so you may think that you're going in a reasonable direction and then find out that it basically leads you to nowhere. So routing is definitely going to play a big role in which player gets ahead, not just in terms of how they route through the dungeon, but how they route through the overworld and how they eventually end up routing all of their side quests in.
Yep, and just to show here, Wolfman left the bank earlier, but they both arrived at the bridge at the same time just because d2kemps had a little luckier routing when going to the bridge.
We're skipping over a lot of this text here, but the characters are a little bit confused about why Lance is Lance and not Lenna.
Yep, and I think we saw the Steam achievement pop up quickly on Wolfman's screen, as that's the first time he's done this one. All right, we do have some graves on the east side, so that will make it a little easy to do the book collecting.
Yeah, I'm sure that both of our runners are happy to see that.
Yes, and I can't imagine the residents of those graves were doing much reading anyway.
Yeah, well, they're library books, so, they just kind of held on to them a little bit too long. But it looks like a very big graveyard as well. And now we're moving into Dungeon 5. We're going to find the item here. Another small change in this version is that the right side dungeons are shorter than they used to be. So now a few of the rows have been removed. The maps are a little bit smaller. And I know Uthanos is very familiar with that, seeing as he's one of the players who's gone through and documented all of the maps that you can find in these dungeons.
Yes, they still need to be updated for this version though, so maybe we should get on that. Starting with is it L5 or L6 where there's an additional key? I believe it's L6. But in the previous dungeons, the players have been able to go in and just find the item directly. Starting soon, they'll need to first locate a blue key in order to open up access to more of the dungeon, and then the item could potentially fall on either side of the key, but most likely it's going to be after.
Yep, and both of our runners are at a very similar pace. The time that we're going off of is that time in the upper left. So you can see right now it says around 11:30 for d2kemps and 11:55 for Wolfman. So that's the time that we're going to end up going on. And ooh, this is a very scary room that d2kemps has just fallen into.
A combination of exploding snails and then those cutting blades going around the edge. I know they always catch me when I'm trying to pin one of the snails up against the wall to do damage and then have to move to avoid the blade. Makes it a lot more difficult to deal with them.
Yep, and the explosions are one of the most dangerous things in this game. They do 2 hearts of damage, which can kill you very quickly. You can see d2kemps is flashing, which means that any hit will take him out right now. So if he does play it safe for a little bit, he'll gain a heart back, but this is a race. You don't always have time to play it safe when you want to.
Yeah, and that is an interesting mechanic of this game, the kind of the grace period of having 0 hearts and the ability to play it safe and maybe come back from that, where in other games you might just be dead.
And even though we have a bunch of gravestones here that we can push, now there's 2 kinds. There's ones that you can and ones that you can't push. They have like a little arrow on it in this art style so that they can tell which gravestones to push. That's why they're not just trying all of them. But I haven't seen a lot of books there, so they still need to find them somewhere.
Yep, and both players have come across Hammy's house, and they bust down the door to his house, even though the sign clearly says no use of bombs. And he warns them of the dangers of bomb usage and gives them a hammer that they can use instead as a safer alternative.
Oh, hey, we found the jackpot of books. Just got 2 books and found another one on that same screen there for Wolfman. And the hammer is great. It can also be used kind of as a sword, so it can be used to break rocks just like the bomb would, but you can use it in place of the sword that does more damage. So you're going to probably see both players using that as a primary strat going forward.
Not only does it do more damage, but there's some enemies who can block a sword attack, and they're not able to block the hammer. So that definitely speeds things up as well. We see wolfman2000 is into level 6 here, and there are plenty of birds flying around. Good sign for the viewers.
Yep, the birds are very dangerous, and they're a new feature for this one, and I think we can all agree that they are the feature that is the most infuriating that's been added.
Absolutely.
Do I have a quick second to say something?
Yeah, that was a great time.
All right, we have a $20.91 donation from Kyle von Ripper saying, "Glad I can support such a great cause. Shout outs to Castor Pie."
Thank you, Kyle. That was great to see a donation here. So we did find the other item room. We've got the flaming Liz robes, which, if you're familiar with the Zelda games, Legend of Zelda has these enemies called Wizrobes that teleport around and shoot out beams. Here we have Lizrobes, which are the same thing, but lizards, and they light you on fire. These ones are already on fire, so that actually gives them immunity to the fire, which they normally don't have, which is kind of interesting. You can see the Lizrobes sometimes kill themselves with their own attacks.
Artwork for the Lizrobes is one of the advantages of the 32-bit graphic choice, because you can really see their lizardness, which you can't really in the 8-bit. And
Yep.
I don't know if we really talked about the art style options, but there was the incentive, and the votes went for the 32-bit graphics. But essentially, there's two different styles, both for the graphics and for the music, where you can have it look more like the Game Boy style game, or a more somewhat modern game with the style we're looking at now. The gameplay in each of these styles is identical, but many runners prefer one over the other just because they get used to different visual cues from the style that they're used to.
Yep, there are some very slight advantages to playing on 8-bit, which I know is something that d2kemps talks about a lot, despite the fact that he is a pretty dedicated 32-bit player.
wolfman2000 normally plays in 8-bit, so this could be a bit of a difference for him, but I think he said he was preparing for the possibility that they might end up in 32-bit and had done some practice in this mode.
This is a pretty quick item for level 7 here. So we've only got one more item, but before that we need to go to the secret lab, which we're going to see about half of. So the players are on a pretty similar pace here if you look at the time difference that they have. So we are going off of the in-game time. So they're not exactly synced up at the moment.
Yeah, so one nice thing that the developers added for us is this in-game timer. For people like me who have a slower computer, it takes longer to generate the maps and everything when you enter a dungeon or when you enter a new area of the world. So having the timer pause while that stuff happens makes it a lot more equal for calculating how long it took someone to actually play the game.
Yeah, very helpful. And here we're going into the secret lab. So they drop down into the cave, and we're going to see kind of a little dash jump there. So the dash jump allows him to skip the entire left side of this puzzle. This is supposed to be a puzzle that uses everything that you know, and instead we're basically showing, hey, we know some things that we're not actually told. We can do a dash jump by using the lighter along with a jump.
lighter and the jumping ability are both items that we have acquired in dungeons as we've gone along.
Yep. So we're about to get the last item here, which is very cool. Got a little bit of backstory. So what we found out is that Delvin, that guy that we met on the bridge, actually discovered a glitch in the world, and by using that glitch, kind of caused everything to go to hell. So now we're going to have to track down Delvin and defeat him to save the world.
And we see wolfman2000 grabbing a book off the bookshelf before Maxwell drops him into Dungeon 8. And we didn't talk about this in level 4, but one thing that's unique about those two dungeons is instead of going in through the main entrance, you just get dropped into a random room somewhere in the middle of it. So you not only have to find the item of the dungeon, but you also then have to find the exit.
Yep, and which one they go for first is going to depend a little bit on what they are feeling at the moment, but a lot of times you'll see players say, okay, well, I got dropped pretty deep into the dungeon, I'm going to hunt for that item first. Or they might go the other way and say, I got dropped pretty close to the entrance, I'm going to find the entrance first, which gives me a nice teleport point to get out. So Wolfman just looks like the dungeon is forcing them to route past the entrance either way. But right now what they're looking for is the 8th dungeon item, the glasses, which the glasses are very cool, and we'll get to see those soon. They really change how the players are going to get around the world. So they're probably the most interesting item in this game, especially for a Zelda-like, where most of the items are very basic, bow, bombs, things you expect. In this case, the glasses are very unexpected.
Dungeon is really not giving a lot of opportunity for any decision making on our runners' parts, which means you can't go the wrong way, which especially in a race versus someone else on the same seed definitely levels the playing field.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see Wolfman trying to clear out this room. That seemed like kind of a difficult combat room for not much reward. That might give d2kemps a little bit of a lead here. We'll really be able to say who's in the lead once they pick up the glasses. But it's very close. If one of the players does have an advantage, it's maybe 10 seconds at most. And that's easily surmountable, considering that they're about to go into that big side quest phase where a lot of the routing and finding all of the items could, lead them either to fully clear the entire map or just rapidly find everything and be done in a few minutes.
Yep. I had a seed the other day where on both sides of the island, the last item I was looking for was in the last square that I visited. So I got to enjoy all of that particular island, which was very nice from a tourism perspective. But not as nice from a speedrunning perspective.
Yeah, speedrunners are not big on the scenic route, that's for sure. So that was another difficult force combat room. These charging skeletons, they often drop a heart, so a room full of them gives a lot of chances for healing, but they can be kind of a pain even if you're fighting them with a high damage weapon like the hammer that they're using.
As nice as level 7 was to them and giving them the item early, level 8 was not so nice, but Wolfman has found it, so he has the glasses now.
Yep, so the glasses are kind of cool. As you can probably see, things have glitched out a little bit, and the glasses allow the player to see through the glitch and to get past anything that's blocked. And we just saw that it can also be used to bypass the screen switch and wrap from one side of the screen to the other. So that is why it changes their movement options so much, is now they can rapidly go from one side to the other. And the perfect place to try that out is this palace here. So the palace requires the glasses to navigate.
Yep, and a lot of people always ask when watching this game for the first time, is this movement intended? And absolutely. Everything that you're seeing them do with the glasses is not only intended, but as Pi mentioned, also required to traverse through this dungeon.
Yep, and speaking of required movement, they just picked up we just saw Wolfman pick up the speed tunic, which increases your speed permanently as long as you're wearing the tunic, which, I mean, as far as speedrunning goes, this is the item to find.
This particular dungeon here is one of the few areas in the game that is static. Everything inside the palace, the layout always remains constant. So in spite of anybody who's watching this for the first time probably being pretty confused about what just happened there, these runners know exactly the route they need to take as soon as they enter.
Yep. So Wolfman came out of the dungeon at about 24 minutes and 40 seconds. So when d2kemps comes out, we'll have a pretty good idea of which racer is ahead. We just saw on Wolfman's side, it looks like he's doing really well on these side quests. He's got 10 books. He just found the binoculars guy, which is somebody that he's going to have to talk to. He is running around and picking up these little meteors, which normally you wouldn't see speedrunners pick them up, actually. But in this case, Wolfman likes to pick them up just for the sake of charity. When he picks up a meteor, he's going to donate a little bit of extra money after the run to the charity of the cause that he's racing for. So we're going to see him putting some money towards autism after the race is over. So that's great.
And on the east side there's a few key locations and people that the runner's going to need to find before they head back to the west side. So there's going to be like a potion shop where they're sent on a searching for a missing person quest. There's going to be this strange cave where there's some hallucination-related combat that will take place. There's the traveling merchant who Wolfman just ran into that allows them to start out the fetch quest on the west side. And this lumberjack who gives the player an axe. And if the player uses that axe to find a secret location, like just happened here, they're rewarded with an error log.
Yep, and these side quests are specific to the ending that they're running, so they're going for the perfect ending. If they were doing one of the other endings like Catastrophe or Sacrifice, they wouldn't worry about doing any of these side quests at all. But for perfect, basically it's like the 100% run that you would see in this game. So they have to do all the side quests in order to find all the items so that they can then do the sort of pacifist thing of not killing the bosses at the end of the dungeon, but saving them. So that's what these players are doing. And, it looks like, based off of the time that they came out of the palace, d2kemps is behind by about 40 seconds, but the routing here could easily make up that time difference.
Kemps visiting the lumberjack. And their main way for traversing while these side quests are basically using the bicycle to get in the general vicinity of the areas of the map that they want to visit, and then using the glasses to kind of screen wrap around to get there. Wolfman visiting the strange cave.
Yep, and on d2kemps' side, found the potion shop, so he's going to have the potion shop by the time he gets to the strange cave, which is nice.
From this point here, as Pi mentioned, it's going to be really hard to know kind of who's actually in the lead, just because there is so much difference in the way that they're both going to be ending up approaching this. Yeah, we see Wolfman has visited all but 2 squares on the east side, but is now ready to move on to back to the west side. So he's going to try and find. It looks like first he's talking to Paige.
I think we have seen the Thirsty Kid and the office, which they set a teleport point at, and also the Creepy Jack. So
Okay. So we're in great shape on the west side already.
yep.
Do you see how many books each of them need yet?
I know that I saw Wolfman had at least 10. I believe he has 11 now, maybe 12. He's searching around the map. I'm wondering if he maybe he did not stumble across Thirsty Kid yet.
Do I have a quick second to interrupt?
Yeah,
Please.
that's a great time.
All right. This is a little bit of a big one. We have a $257.78 donation from Jay Goodman saying, "Go Team Otter. Best of luck to both runners." We muchly appreciate that donation towards supporting autism.
Wow, yeah,
Oh,
that's a
thank you
huge
very
donation.
much.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure Team Otter is very appreciative of that.
Right now we have a little bit of Metal Gear Solid happening.
This family of bears has had a young blonde girl breaking and entering, and they've asked the police to intervene. And the police have contacted us in order to help them set a trap. This would have
Yep,
been a great use for that camouflage tunic we grabbed early on, but choosing not to go that way, it looks like.
Yep, but using that the screen wrap with the glasses, and now we can put Goldilocks behind bars where she belongs.
We get to keep the police report, which somebody else might want later. And d2kemps on as well to this area. I believe they used the hiding from an NPC technique in one of the Oracle Zelda games as well. Can't remember which one.
Yep, there's a whole lot of references to the Game Boy Zelda games in particular in this.
All right, Wolfman is back in the bank again, where several of the side quests culminate. And it looks like he just grabbed his 12th book from the bookshelf there. So he's in great shape as far as that goes.
He did just get himself trapped somehow, so that's why he teleported out with the bike. That's something that can happen with all of this screen wrapping craziness, is that you can find yourself in a place that you can't actually get out of.
You're seeing here also not just screen wrapping is possible, but out of bounds movement is also possible, which makes visiting the dungeons a second time much quicker because you don't have to rely on the doors and the pathways that the dungeon enables for you.
Wolfman's picking up some potions here. So the first item on the on this bear's list is always a healing potion, even if you don't know what the color is. In this case, it's fizzy purple. Fizzy purple could be anything, but we know because it's the first item on his list that it is definitely always a healing potion.
if Wolfman didn't already have his 12 books, Andre the Bear would have had one more to sell him if he still needed it. And he has moved on to the Strange Cave, where Paige, the librarian, who is following Lenna, or Lance, I guess, around now, has asked for 10 marshmallows to be collected, and it's part of some sort of celebration. So they have now been collected by Wolfman.
Yep, and this combat should go pretty quickly with the hammer. So he now has to clear out all of the enemies in this dungeon. Well, not dungeon, but the hallucination cave. And afterwards, we're going to get one of the last items that we need, and then he's going to talk to Paige and complete her side quest as well. So we are almost at the point where we're going to dip back into the dungeons and start fighting the bosses.
d2kemps finishing up the quests in the bank as well, so definitely not far behind. And it looks like d2kemps' in-game timer has almost gone a full minute behind Wolfman's, so that'll make things interesting as well.
Yep, this is why we have the in-game timer, is that each player is playing on their own computer, and so the timing is going to depend on how quickly the computer can generate the world. But luckily, we don't have to worry about that in the timing. It actually is doing a frame counter to make sure that we know exactly how many frames it took to finish the game.
Where they're fighting now is a new hallucination-based combat arena that is being developed in beta, and they are just going through wave after wave of enemy to clear it out and hopefully win a trophy. d2kemps took a little break from the combat to have the campfire celebration with Paige, and she gave him a locket, and he has quickly dismissed her from following anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure a cave full of monsters is a great place to have a date, but you know, you do you.
In the world of SASE, SASE, that is the perfect place for a date. Wolfman opted to clear out the monsters before starting the date, so that's another way to run with it.
And we just saw Wolfman equip the Power of Compassion, which is the item that he's going to be using to spare the bosses after he fights them. So the idea here is that instead of fighting the bosses all the way to destruction and stealing their heart, instead we're just going to take them down to 1 hit point, use the Power of Compassion to spare them, and then we'll still get the item that we actually need in order to get the perfect ending from them, and then go back to the palace, fight the final boss. And it's pretty fun. You know, I think that this is one of the more exciting endings, if for no other reason than because you are not actually killing the bosses, you don't get the hearts. So they have to do this whole run on 3 hearts, which is a pretty challenging way to play this game.
Especially when you get poisoned, as just has happened to d2kemps. So hopefully, looks like he had a healing potion, so he was able to recover from that. But death this late into the arena would not be very forgiving.
I believe that is the last item.
Yep. I think all he has to do is say hi to Tressa once he enters the dungeon, and should have all 8 items.
So he's going into Dungeon 4 first. Interesting choice here. So this is going to be Cat's Heel. One of the big advantages of playing on this mode is that you don't have to deal with 8-bit Cat's Heel. The cutest boss. Hello, cute cat.
Murder Tabby.
I think all cats are murder tabbies deep down inside.
And Wolfman opting to do damage on the right side of the screen. That's a recent update, or a recent optimization, I should say, in the community.
Yep, the other little optimization is you see that he's using the glasses, which causes the whole screen to sort of glitch out, and that's not just for fun. It does speed up some of these animations here, so it does give a little bit of a time advantage. Now he's going to enter in that Konami code, up, up, down, down, left, right, left, and if he puts in that last right, he will kill the boss, so instead we're going to see Power of Compassion.
This is one boss fight where the 8-bit mode is very confusing, just graphics-wise, where the 32-bit mode does much more to tell you exactly what you need to do by displaying the computer screen with the arrows and the making it look like a joystick rather than a weird eyeball.
Yeah, it's definitely easier to tell what's going on. We did see a little bit of a trick there. So there was a cutscene skip. So normally there's a cutscene that plays after you defeat the boss and get the item. But by quickly pulling out the bicycle, teleporting to the entrance of the dungeon, you can skip the cutscene entirely, saving quite a bit of time. So
right.
speaking of time, we are going to be fighting against this boss Sandolphin, who has a very long second phase. So this is a bit of unfortunate timing for them. Or no, wait, no, this is level 3. This boss will not have a second phase. So this saves about a minute by seeing this boss in Dungeon 3 as opposed to Dungeon 4.
Bosses in Dungeons 1 through 3 will only have a single phase to deal with, whereas everyone from that point on has a glitch phase, such as we see d2kemps facing now with the Konami code.
So here we are in level 2. So this is the jungle biome, or the jungle dungeon, which has the interesting problem of not being good for the glasses. So it's very difficult to navigate because you can't do some of the out of bounds walking that you can in the other dungeon layouts.
Yeah, I would say until the birds existed, this would maybe be one of the most feared things by speedrunners.
Yep, but luckily I think it's not so bad when it's in Dungeon 2. You know, you'd hate to see it in Dungeon 7 or 6 where those dungeons are huge, but here didn't lose too much time.
Definitely. If you're going to see them, you want to see it early.
This is another good boss to have early. That second phase can take a long time, and we're about to see a skip, one of the few in this game.
I hope Wolfman has practiced doing it in 32-bit mode, because I know I heavily rely on the 8-bit visual cues in order for the skip to work.
Ooh, he missed the skip, so that's going to lose him a couple seconds here.
d2kemps taking a little different order here in the dungeon revisits. He's back in L1.
Yep, they do each have to do all of the fights. Wolfman did get the second skip there, so that saves him about 11 seconds. So the skip is that if you are standing exactly in the middle of the screen when Tentaluchus goes into that bouncing off the walls phase, then he'll actually skip
The
most of it.
DVD screensaver phase.
Yep. So instead of doing the DVD screensaver, he'll just go right back down and will become vulnerable to damage. So, it will move on to the next phase. But it saves about 11 seconds, and that's a skip that was discovered by a couple members of our community. And, you know, it's one of the few boss skips that we see.
d2kemps traversing the jungle. Trying to find a way into that boss room. And he's found it.
So as we move into the east side dungeons, we're going to hopefully stumble across the revolver at some point here. Looks like dungeon 5, we already know where the boss is, so we're hoping that the revolver is not in here. The revolver is a very interesting item. Do you want to tell the viewers about what that does?
Absolutely. So it's a revolver with a single round, and it can be used to essentially one-shot any enemy. So if you use it right away on the next crab warrior you see, well, then that was your use of that weapon. What we found to be the optimal place to use it is during the depending on which ending you're doing, it might be the final boss, but one of the ending bosses, you can save about 110 seconds by taking them out with the revolver rather than fighting normally.
Yep, one shot, one kill, no exceptions.
I feel like we've all lost a PB run to missing that shot at one point or another, so got to be careful with it.
Yeah, especially with the speed tunic on.
Wolfman fighting Krabadon. How do you say it?
I usually say Krabadon. This boss can be kind of a troll. So he's going to move back and forth across the screen, do these charges, and shoot the weak spot for massive damage. That's kind of the idea with this boss, but because he changes direction sometimes randomly, you might find yourself in a position where you don't have the opportunity to shoot that weak spot when it becomes vulnerable.
So just a matter of lining up where you expect it to be and waiting for it to change and then getting the shot off.
So it looks like Wolfman did it with absolutely no problems. And look at that dungeon. There was so much of it that wasn't seen. That just got right to the boss there. And again, we've got Dungeon 7.
And we find Hedraniel, the rock noggin.
Yep, and using a little bit of a skip here. So normally you have to wait for Hedraniel to throw out these skulls that you then pick up and throw at him. But it turns out that if you drop a bomb on the ground and pick it back up, it counts to do damage to him. So it's kind of a cool, fast strat. For some reason, having problems picking him up. This is kind of a downside of using the speed tunic, is sometimes you run into little issues like that.
I don't remember if you mentioned it or not, but every boss requires the item found in that dungeon in order to do damage to them. So in this case, for Hedraniel, it was the ability to lift up items that we're able to use against him. Wolfman onto L8.
Yeah, I have to say these dungeons have been very quick to navigate through and find the final boss.
Which unfortunately means not stumbling onto the revolver, but
So you
it will
can't see
be.
it, but I'm sure the dance dad is dancing right now.
I do not doubt it. We'll have Krabadon give a little wiggle in his absence of webcam.
Yeah, I think I saw. I think I saw his character sort of moving around a little bit just to make up for not having the camera.
And Hadasaya is always the level 8 boss. They're a magician, bat, rabbit hybrid. You know the type. They're doing a card trick here. Pick a card, any card.
Yeah, this is definitely a boss. When I first fought him, just seemed very mystifying. I wasn't sure what any of the patterns were really supposed to be, but the runners at this point, they know exactly what everything's supposed to do, and they've got it down to a science. And here we see Wolfman ended up going into the transition right up against the wall, which lets him uh, really quickly get in hit. So that was a very, very clean Hadasaya fight.
Yeah, you can see that Hadasai will push you back against the wall, so you want to be on a wall right next to them if possible in order to deal out that next hit as soon as possible.
So it looks like we are going to be going into the final dungeon on a sub-hour pace, 49 minutes and 30 seconds, entering the palace to fight the last two bosses and then go into the final sequence.
Revisit some familiar faces. Here we see the chairman again. We saw him in the bank and then again on the bridge. He has transformed into Gammon Mammon, the capitalist pig.
And we saw a little bit of intentional, not damage, but intentionally taking an attack from him. That allows us to skip a very long phase where Gammon would be throwing a bunch of brass bowls at the player. But instead, we can skip that phase entirely, saving a ton of time.
Right into the money bag tennis, where he's not upset because of being hit by the projectile, but rather because the money is flying everywhere. And that opens him up to attack.
There's some of those bowls, so that skip did not work as intended there. But he did get the second chance at it, and now Gammon is down, and we are about to see the full-on Delvin fight because we do not have the revolver today.
At this point, both players are got to be hoping that the other player did not find that revolver.
Yeah, that would be enough to make up the time difference between both of these racers here.
Delvin has transformed into Archangel Egomaniac, and he's doling out all ranges of fire-based attacks, as well as kind of repeating some of the behavior we've seen from some of the other bosses right away. So if Wolfman had not used bombs quickly, there would have been a tentacle-style attack similar to the earlier Tentaluchus fight.
Yeah, this is definitely a fight that is a lot easier when you know what you're doing, but it is not necessarily easy. There are still things that can go wrong, and so hoping, fingers crossed that we can get through this without any incidents or deaths. But we do have the safety potions, which will be very helpful here if either player starts to take too much damage.
Yeah, in contrast to some of the other endings what would you have? 11 hearts at this point, rather than the
Yeah.
3.
That's I never can remember whether Gammon's heart actually gives you a heart, but yeah, you would have 11 or
Just
12 hearts
refills
here.
one of your hearts.
Okay. So yeah, you'd have 11 hearts, and that's a big difference between the 3 that we have. And we are in the last phase over here for Wolfman. And yep, looks like this boss is now down.
So in some endings of the game, this would be it. But let's see what happens, being that we've spared all of the archangels.
You're going to go to level 9, the secret level.
Are the few games to include an intended debug menu for gameplay. So we're back in the original school where we started out at the beginning of the game, but things are looking even glitchier than they were back then.
Yeah, for sure. And now we're fighting against 8 Fridge. That was the source of the glitch that Delvin created, and we basically this whole sequence here is very scripted, but it is crazy.
And the best music in the game, in my opinion. I'm actually interested. I heard about a phase skip in this part of the ending that I didn't even know about until yesterday, so I'll be interested if either of the players are able to do it.
That is very interesting. I haven't seen it actually in use yet, so that would be kind of cool.
Alright, Lance is fighting Lance back in the overworld here, and all the tiles are not what they appear, so you might find yourself swimming or walking through shrubs, but able to take him down and move back on to the next phase, where we become the actual Lance and have to avoid some tiles being thrown at us.
Yep, and up on d2kemps' side, we have the another final boss fight. So d2kemps was about a minute and a half behind going into the final dungeon. So it does look like, assuming nothing goes wrong here, that Wolfman is going to be our winner. But we will find out what the exact time is. I'm pretty sure it's a sub-hour time. The time will be called when Lance opens the fridge.
Yeah, and we are very close to that here. Just a couple more phases.
Yep, interestingly, the way that you win is by intentionally taking a death.
All right, and
time.
we are very close.
So congratulations to Wolfman with a final time of 55 minutes, 49.408 seconds.
A very good time for marathon, as you are always finishing the seed and you never know what's going to go wrong in there. So honestly, always great to see anything under an hour, so that in the 55 range is very good.
Yep, that's only about a little less than 2 minutes off from Wolfman's current PB in this version, so it's a very great, very good time. You know, we're talking about a roguelike here. You're not going to expect that every run is going to be exactly the same.
Right, and we have d2kemps into L9 to face the Deus Hex Machina. Back the first wave of tiles.
Let's see if we can get a Wolfman in here.
Well, this was not the easiest seed in the world.
Yeah, but you handled it really well, and you got a sub-hour time, so congratulations on winning the race.
Yeah, great,
Thanks.
got.
I just popped up the main stream. This looked like it was a close one, which is very good. Now, I need to donate. I picked up 12 meteors.
Oh, that's a lot of meteors.
I wanted the books, and you gave me a graveyard seed. What do you expect?
It's true, there were so many item drops there. So how much are you going to be donating for each of those meteors you found?
Usual amount, $5.
All right, so that's $60. So that's a very nice donation. So thank you very much for that. Oh, hey, Kemp's saved Lance up on his stream, so that's great.
But we were Lance.
You know, that's why you have to, self-love, it's important.
Point.
I will have to use a lance. Alright, d2kemps does not have much left at all, as he's bouncing around, waiting for all the tiles to be sent.
Yep, this was a great race. Both players played really well. I don't think we saw... I think we only saw one unintentional death taken by d2kemps earlier in the run, and even that one didn't affect his time very much. So it's a very clean run from both players.
And time for d2kemps.
I have to wonder what the difference was besides that death then.
I think it was just routing. I think that death only maybe accounted for like 10 seconds or something. It was right after dropping into Dungeon 4.
Which, if anything, that's a good time to take a death if you're low on health, so yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it was really close, even up to collecting the glasses. It was mainly just who ran into all the side quest items and books first.
These were the easiest books to find, surprisingly. It's like, give us a graveyard seed, and yet I felt there were more meteors and skeletons than anything. Yeah, we had no birds this time, or at least none that were super nasty.
Oh, yeah, just throw two bats at you.
I actually almost died in it because of the fire damage.
Well, I think that was a really great run. Unfortunately, we are running a little bit behind on time here in this marathon. So if we can just wrap this up and maybe get some final words from everybody. So d2kemps, would you like to plug anything for us today?
And I'm on the spectrum myself, and I'm fortunate that I'm able to help with this cause. My donation should be in now. Other than that, keep on grooving all, stay safe, keep it up, everyone, and yeah.
And Euthanos, would you like to kind of give us our last thanks for everybody, like the Discord community and everyone?
Absolutely. Bitten Studio, who made the game, has a wonderful Discord with a great community. If you're interested in playing the game, honestly, speedrunning or not, just join the Discord. There's a lot of discussion, fan art, all kinds of fun interactions. So stop on by.
Yep, it's a great game. It's only about $10 on Steam, and you may already own it if you picked up that big, the racial justice thing on itch.io. You already own this game, and you can install it and play it right away. So with that, thank you, SASE, for hosting the Lenna's Inception run, and go ahead and take us out.